When you hear the name Albert Einstein, what comes to mind? Genius, right? The equation E=mc², the wild hair. But his story, it's this incredible, dramatic journey from being a global icon to a hunted refugee. It's about how the very mind that completely reshaped our universe was forced to flee for his life. Let's get into it.
So you look at these two pictures. On one side, you've got the icon, the celebrity scientist. On the other, the refugee, a man literally stripped of everything and targeted for death. So how in the world does the most celebrated scientist on Earth become one of its most famous exiles? That's the story we're going to unpack.
You know, his rise to fame wasn't some overnight explosion. After publishing his mind-blowing papers back in 1905, he was still just a clerk at the Swiss Patent Office. The academic world, well, it took them a while to catch on, but eventually they just couldn't ignore him anymore.
But once the balls started rolling, man, it rolled fast. Check this out. In 1908, he's an unpaid lecturer, still working his day job. Just a year later, boom, associate professor. By 1914, he's at the absolute peak of German science in Berlin. Europe's top schools were all fighting for him. The patent clerk had definitely arrived.
But even as his career was taking off, Einstein was obsessed with a much bigger problem. His theory of special relativity was brilliant, sure, but it was incomplete. See, it didn't include acceleration, and it didn't include gravity. So for the next 8 years, he poured everything he had into cracking that puzzle.
It all started with what he called his happiest thought. Just imagine you're in an elevator, way out in deep space, no gravity anywhere. If that elevator starts accelerating up, what do you feel? You feel your feet pressed to the floor, right? Just like you're standing on Earth. And from that one simple idea, a revolution was born.
A simple idea, yeah? But turning it into a real theory was, well, anything but. Einstein later said this period was the hardest work he ever did in his life. For 8 solid years, he wrestled with these monster, complex mathematical equations, trying to build a new vision of gravity from the ground up. It was a brutal intellectual fight.
So here's the big takeaway. Einstein basically reimagined the entire universe. He said gravity isn't a force pulling things. Instead, massive objects like our sun literally bend and warp the fabric of space-time around them. So planets aren't being pulled, they're just following the curves, kind of like a marble rolling around a bowling ball that's been placed on a giant rubber sheet.
And this is where it gets so beautiful. Out of all that complicated math came one simple, elegant prediction you could actually test. If massive things really do bend space, then even light itself should have to follow that curve when it passes a huge object like the sun. Now all he needed was a way to prove it.
World War I had pretty much put all of science on hold. But in 1919, the war was over, and the world was finally ready to see if Einstein's strange new universe was real. This was the moment, the one that would turn him from a well-respected physicist into a global legend.
Okay, so the stage was set for one of the greatest showdowns in science history. A British astronomer, Arthur Eddington, led teams to photograph a total solar eclipse. Here's the deal. If Einstein was right, the light from distant stars passing the sun would bend, and those stars would look like they'd shifted by exactly 1.75 arcseconds. If Newton was right, they wouldn't shift at all, or by much less.
And the result? The photos from the eclipse were clear. The stars had shifted, and they shifted by the exact amount that Einstein's theory predicted. It was unbelievable. He had seen the true shape of the universe, and now the whole world had the proof.
The announcement hit like a shockwave. I mean, the media reaction was just explosive. This wasn't some tiny adjustment to the old theories. This was a complete overthrow of a 200-year-old understanding of how the cosmos worked. Newspapers all over the world scrambled to explain this new, weird universe to everyone. Headlines like this one from the Times of London just cemented it in the public mind. It was official. A new scientific age had just begun. And just like that, the guy who was working in a patent office just a few years earlier became a household name. He wasn't just a scientist anymore. He was a global superstar. But as he was about to find out, that kind of fame comes with a very heavy price. So at the exact moment Einstein is reaching the absolute peak of his fame, this dark shadow starts to fall over his life and over his home country, Germany. His success made him a public figure, but his heritage was about to make him a target. His life was completely turned upside down. He won the Nobel Prize in 1921, and funnily enough, it was for his earlier work, not for relativity. He divorced his first wife and married his cousin Elsa, who really tried to shield him from the crushing weight of all the public attention.
But back in the angry, resentful climate of post-war Germany, a really nasty backlash started to build. Other physicists, nationalist ones, felt threatened by his ideas and were fueled by anti-Semitism. They started attacking his work, calling general relativity this Jewish physics. And this threat escalated really quickly. It went from arguments in journals to public rallies denouncing his theories as un-German. Then, in 1922, his friend, the German foreign minister, was assassinated. Einstein was warned that he could be next. This forced him to flee Germany for a while. The danger was now very, very real.
He would come back, but the Germany he knew was disappearing. The politics were just getting uglier and uglier, and by 1933, the final, permanent break was about to happen.
This was the tipping point. Einstein was visiting Caltech in the US when Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party took power in Germany. Friends sent him these urgent warnings. Do not come back. Your life is in danger. And he listened. He would never set foot in Germany again.
The Nazi regime's response was swift and it was brutal. They ransacked his property, they seized his life savings, and they threw his scientific books onto those infamous public bonfires, calling them symbols of un-German thought.
And then, their hatred became deadly serious. They officially put a bounty on his head, 5,000 marks. The world's greatest scientist was now a marked man.
And the threat couldn't have been more direct. A Nazi magazine actually published his photo with this chilling two-word caption: "Not yet hanged." The message was perfectly clear. You are an enemy of the state, and we are coming for you.
From a patent clerk to a global celebrity, from a groundbreaking theorist to a hunted target, Einstein had unlocked the secrets of the cosmos. But now, as a refugee arriving in America, his story was far from over. The question was no longer about stars and planets, but about the fate of the world. How would the man who fled one war help shape the outcome of the next one?